Andrew can, great, thanks a lot. Okay, over to you, Ben.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the December 2025 Crystal and Pentagon City Council meeting. My name is Ben Devanzo. I am the chair of the CPCC. We have a good meeting today, focused particularly on updates around parks and transportation and other more infrastructure investments in our neighborhood of Pentagon cities and Crystal cities, covered by the sector plans that this council is charged with overseeing. I will provide some additional just opening remarks and providing just some of the required legal remarks that the county relies on now. So we are holding a virtual public meeting which enables remote electronic participation as legally authorized by the Code of Virginia per the Planning Commission's electronic meetings policy adopted on July 7th, 2022. Today, all members of the CPCC are participating remotely. This meeting is being recorded for public records and will be posted on the Arlington County Commission meetings YouTube page. So avoid sharing any personal information that you would not like to be made public. At this time, I'd like to orient everyone to our hybrid environment and cover a few specifics about how tonight's meeting will be run. Members of the public may attend the meeting electronically by using the Microsoft Teams link provided on the CPCC webpage, the county's events calendar, and the Gov delivery email sent to the CPC email subscribers. Additionally, there is a dial-in phone option for those who wish to use it. For our members, if anyone loses internet connectivity during today's meeting, please reconnect with us by phone. Please keep your phones and devices muted until you are called upon. Turn off sound to any other devices around you to minimize interference. For all other virtual attendees using Microsoft Teams, please turn off your video feed. So that includes people who are not CPCC members or people who are speaking, such as staff. I will address it when it is appropriate to turn on in a moment. So the meeting chat for Microsoft Teams is active to serve two purposes: to assist participants who need technical support and for participants to pose brief or clarifying questions to the larger audience. While the clarifying questions will be monitored, they will not be formally acknowledged. Staff may address these as appropriate. The Teams chat should not be used for discussion or inappropriate statements. Those who are planning to provide public comment may only do so at the end of the meeting, as the chat may not be used for that purpose. All public comments may be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public testimony periods. Additional notes for CPCC members. When CPCC members participating virtually wish to be recognized to speak on an item during the course of the meeting, please turn your video feed on and raise the virtual hand in Teams. As well will staff will monitor the video feeds. Additional notes for members of the public who would like to provide feedback and comment. The CPCC agenda items are not public hearings, therefore public comment is at my discretion as the chair. I will call for speakers at the end of the meeting after the committee discussion has concluded. This is for those of you who are not CPCC members but would like to speak. Speaking time allocated will depend on the number of speakers we have this evening, if any. Virtual attendees, please indicate on Teams chat that you'd like to provide comment, and your name will be added to our list of speakers. Ms. Smith will acknowledge your requests on the Teams chat. When virtual attendees are called upon to speak, you must unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon that is located on your meeting command bar. The moderator does not have the ability to unmute you. You'll be muted when your time has concluded. An alternative public comment may be provided on the public comment form posted on the CPCC webpage. Lastly, this is a public forum. Today's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to Freedom of Information Act requirements. So thank you for bearing with me for that. Our agenda today, which has been shared ahead of time, is really focused on kind of county capital infrastructure projects in the Crystal and Pentagon City sector plan areas. We are going to start with park project updates and from DPR, followed by transportation project updates from DES. Then the idea is to use those updates to formulate a potential letter that the CPCC will send ahead of the county's semi-annual capital improvement process. And staff, I may ask prior to that discussion for just a educational moment once we move on to that agenda item for CPCC members on what the CIP is and involves. My hope is really that we can identify as a council some priority projects, and ideally as few as possible, to help inform the county's decision making, particularly in a time when capital investment may be limited due to budget circumstances. We will then move on to the initial discussion I had mentioned in our last meeting around CPCC decision making and communication practices, and then finally turning to the 2026 meeting calendar, allowing time for public comment, if any, at the end, and then wrapping up by 9 p.m. I will also like to take this time to just express my deep appreciation for staff for spending their time with us this evening. I know it takes time to put together these presentations, and staff have family and other obligations in the evening. So very much appreciate everyone who is joining us tonight representing the county for their time, as well as everyone on the commission. So I will ask our first presentation to start. As typical, I'm going to ask that we have the staff provide the presentation first, and then we will allow time for comment and for discussion from CPCC members. I'll preview that I'll plan to just organize this by the kind of different topics that come up, different projects that are being brought up by the staff just to organize our discussion. So we will have the Parks and Recreation presentation, and then allow time for any questions or comments, particularly with the CIP or anything else in mind from CPCC members, and then move on to the DES, and similarly allow time for questions and comment after that presentation from staff. So I will turn it over to Scott now. Scott, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott McPartland. I'm with the Department of Parks and Recreation, and I'm here this evening to share an update on the parks within the Crystal City Sector Plan and Pentagon City Sector Plan areas. Next slide, please. So before we jump into the projects, I'd like to provide some context on how parks are typically created in this part of the county. And as there's limited space in the Crystal City, Pentagon City areas, new parks are often acquired and constructed when existing buildings are redeveloped. It's typically an opportunity we have to create public space, and the majority of parks here are indeed privately owned public spaces that contain a park easement which secures public access. And it's essentially, for all intents and purposes, it is indeed a park. It's just not owned fee simple by the county. A good example of this is the Crystal City Water Park. And in this part of the county, also because of the redevelopment opportunities that we have, funding is often from community benefit through private redevelopment. So although some of our park projects may also receive funding from the Capital Improvement Program and the tax increment financing as well. Next slide, please. So the sector plan, the Pentagon City Sector Plan, calls for multiple acres of land to be added through various projects. And give me 1 second here. And in addition, as you most likely are aware, there's also a green ribbon effort in this part of the county to connect public spaces and other important spaces throughout Pentagon City. And So basically, within the sector plan, within the Pentagon City sector plan, there are uh, distinct and multiple funding mechanisms throughout the sector plan. So they really the plan doesn't have a one size fits all for funding. Next slide, please. And with Crystal, excuse me. And the Crystal City sector plan identifies 26 public spaces and parks to be expanded or constructed. And within this plan, the funding sources are not specifically identified. Next slide, please. So the recently delivered projects in this area include Met Park, which was completed in 2023. Um, we included, even though it's outside of the Crystal City sector plan or both sector plans, we included Long Bridge Aquatics and Fitness Center because it's immediately adjacent to the north, and it's also just the magnitude and the impact that the project has in this part of the county. So we included Long Bridge in this presentation. That was completed in 2021, and then Crystal City Water Park was completed in 2023. Next slide, please. Current and future projects identified in Pentagon City. So this is not a CIP project. However, it is identified in the Pentagon City sector plan, and it is indeed contingent on the redevelopment of the River House project. And each public space within is also contingent on which phase of the River House project is being implemented. And that's important to note because the illustration you have in front of you is space N1, which is going to be an interim space that's 1/3 of a future plaza. And this is going to the board this month, and this is the space that's associated with it. And then also Virginia Highlands Park, and that effort's also going to include public spaces, a couple of public spaces that are in the Aurora Highlands area adjacent. And this has funds that were identified in the 2025 CIP, 1.485 million in 2032. And this will include, obviously, the planning for Virginia Highlands Park as well as some other spaces. Next slide, please. Okay, and let me take a look here. Okay. Current and future parks in Crystal City. Good news, Arlington Junction Park is opening up really soon. It's going to be opening up this winter. 15th Street Park is identified in the CIP. We have monies in FY 28, 29, and 30 respectively. 23rd Street Plaza, the use permit was just approved in November, and the park naming was also approved in November. The CIP has allocated $475,000 for construction in 2026. Metro Market Square. So right now, as many of you know, that we are in the master planning process, and master planning will be ongoing through 2026. And then we're going to start design development shortly after. Well, hopefully shortly after. The CIP does allocate $6 million for construction, and another $3 million is contingent on the construction of an adjacent approved site plan, the Americana, which is currently delayed. They did renew the site plan recently, so we anticipate construction should start in less than 3 years. So we are optimistic about that, and we are continuing the master planning. Center Park, the CIP has identified 850,000 for planning and design and 6.54 million for construction. The monies are allocated in FY 26, 27, and 28 respectively. And we plan to start this process in 2026. So we're going to start early next year. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is really self-explanatory. Delayed projects in Crystal City. This is Penn Place, and in the interest of time, I'm going to assume that most of you, or if not all of you, are familiar with this. And if you have any questions, we can circle back. So I guess we can move to the next slide. Delayed projects in Crystal City. Crystal Plaza 5 was approved in January 2023. That's Parks 10 and 11 in the Crystal City sector plan, and that development is currently postponed. Block W has been on hold since early this year, and the sector plan envisions approximately 38,000 square feet of public space at this site. The Crystal Plaza Apartments, that site plan was submitted in 2023, and that is also delayed. And then Crystal Houses, which Parks 19 and 20 that you may be familiar with, and we had some processes for those efforts. That site plan was approved in 2019, but it has not yet moved forward. Next slide, please. Okay, future projects in Crystal City. So there's the really large PDSP at 1200 South Fern Street, the Pentagon Center PDSP, and that has been approved but has not yet moved forward. And then there's the 12th Street Landing project that has been approved as well. And then in the Pentagon City sector plan, the area in the lower right that is outlined in red, those are all contingent on future redevelopment. But the sector plan does provide us with guidance on how to proceed once those sites redevelop. Next, please. And future projects in Crystal City. So Crystal Gateway was approved by the board in 2020. And this parkland, once we're essentially waiting for an easement on this one, and the future parkland will be conveyed once the building is constructed. So that will be secured as public space. And then the parks that are outlined in red are contingent on future development. But as you see, we have a way forward here as well. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to ask that we kind of go through, maybe I could see the way I suggest we talk about this is I'm just going to chunk the kind of parks we talked about together into chunks and ask if people have any comments or questions on any of the ones that I mentioned. Then I'll go to, at the end, if there's parks and potential parks projects that were not mentioned in the presentations that could be potentially worth discussing. It is always helpful, right, that these comments and questions are always very helpful for informing the eventual guidance that we can provide to the county board, particularly prioritization parks that you all think are important. Is helpful, or directions or questions. So I'll first say, so if there's any questions on just the beginning, the updated and delivered projects, the River House, although we discussed that pretty intensely, Virginia Highlands Park and Junction Park. So any of those parks, other questions, if you could please raise your hand and go on camera. So I see Alex, you have done so.
So my question is, in regard to some of the inch stones, particularly you think of a development like River House, one that's going to take quite a while. Is that tied to any slow inch stones as they do one particular development? We're expecting this, as they do this next element of their project, so maybe the park develops as, the project develops, or, it seems a little confusing as to what the schedule is for when, when we would see the development of Virginia Highlands Park as a result of River House. I'm wondering are we creating like inchstones for achievement, while the overall development is going into place?
Thank you. So, if I understand your question correctly, I think that the answer is yes, in the sense of, you're correct that as the various phases of River House are adopted, there are certain public spaces that will accompany that phase. And in terms of milestones for, what spaces go with what site plan, I would have to go back and look through the report. I think that there is a way forward regarding what the developer. I think that the long story short is through through each of the phases, there will be negotiation between the county and the developer for each 4.1 site plan. And depending on that negotiation, we'll receive parks with the associated phase. And I do believe that the sector plan, as well as and it hasn't been adopted by the board yet, so I don't think we have a definitive answer until it's adopted. But I believe that through the open space discussions, and I did not participate directly, however, I discussed this multiple times with our representative who represented our team on this and our department. And my understanding is that there will be a way forward, and there will be an expectation as each phase develops, and they're going to reference the process that was just held, the SPRC process, very, very heavily in the parks conversations. And then when the board finalizes the conditions, they're going to reference those conditions as well as the sector plan. So I hope I answered your question.
Scott, thanks. Ben, I was just going to jump in and just remind the group that we got a presentation last time from Matt Ginnivan on the River House proposal, and the staff reports are out at the moment that can be reviewed. That project, like was mentioned, is going to the board this month, this coming weekend, and some of those details in terms of what the delivery of public space on that site and how it's timed would be through part of the PDSP and some of the final site plan actions.
I may have a follow-up question to that, but I'll let the others who have their hands raised go first. So Stacy.
Hi. So questions on Virginia Highlands Park. You said there's a $1.5 million budget. Is that just for planning, or is that for the scope of improvements? And is there any I'm not familiar with this. Is there any outline of what those improvements are there? 1.45 doesn't go a long way in a big project.
My assumption, given the amount, is that would be for the park master planning.
Is there any proposed uses other than what's there now?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I know that every once in a while there is an interim use that's proposed. Like I know that in the last couple of years, not a farmer's market, a community garden was added. And I know that from time to time, folks will work with the area managers and come up with some interim stuff. But there are no proposed new uses. We wouldn't install a permanent use without a process. So nope. Not that I'm aware of.
one other question, Ben, is this the right time to talk about the Dominion site questions?
No, that would be, I think, for DES.
Okay, it's kind of a park, so I wasn't sure. Right.
That's a good point. But yeah, I don't, staff can correct me, but I think the Dominion project falls under DES.
So that is later in the meeting?
Yes, but I'm open to correction if that's not
Okay,
true.
can you just let me know when the appropriate time is to talk about that? Because I'm not clear.
There were multiple, there are multiple Dominion projects, and I know that there were some, I know that one of the sites will be part of a future park master planning discussion. Um, but, and, I believe it may even be associated with the future Virginia Highlands Park discussion. At the same time, right now, it's just, not just, but right now, if I know that there's at least two Dominion sites in this neighborhood, but if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's an interim condition right now.
Okay, I guess what I'd like to ask is that Scott, if we could follow up, I am with Aurora Highlands Civic Association. I'd like to see if we could get you to meet with us and talk about these Virginia Aurora Highlands parks in a little bit more detail. If that's okay. In
I would,
meetings.
well, let's I guess we can speak offline about that. Typically when we talk about parks, we like to bring everyone together in the same room so everyone can hear each other's interests. But that's really, feel free to contact.
Aurora Highlands Civic Association.
Yes, absolutely. Understood. But feel free to reach out to me outside of this meeting if you'd like to discuss. I think my information should be associated, or Jennifer can get that to you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll clarify if I understand correctly. So the two Dominion sites you're speaking to, just so everyone can understand, is Dominion had did a land swap with the county, however many years ago, and it had a site that it was not using adjacent to Virginia Highlands Park, located at South Joyce and 16th Street, that is now currently vacant and unused. And that is potentially, from what I've been told, would be considered as part of the VHP master planning process. Separately, Dominion has an ongoing construction project that has been ongoing for quite some time at 18th Street and Fern as part of its substation expansion. And part of that substation expansion is conversion, improvement, creation, whatever you'd want to call it, along Fern Street of a public space that was kind of created as part of that. And so I think it's a little unclear whose jurisdiction that given it's a Dominion project, that public space and the substation project falls under.
See, Rob has his hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. I was going to be digging into this one as well. So I won't go very long because you pretty much covered it. But I will say in the 2023 CIP, the $1.4 million was much earlier in the CIP cycle, and then was followed by about $23 million of implementation money. So if you had a crystal ball, you could probably look to the 5-year horizon in this CIP and see that there would be envisioned construction money shortly thereafter the master planning process. Then Ben, I think you've clarified what was going on with the Dominion sites. Those are both listed in the 2023, I know, CIP, probably also in the 2025 CIP as being included in that $1.4 million planning money. 20th and Ives, I think, is the other Dominion site, if I'm not mistaken. 20th and Ives, and then the Dominion substation that exists. Those are all packaged in that 1.4 million.
Yes, 20th and Ives was we acquired. That was a house that we acquired, and then we restored it to an interim public space. But yes, you are absolutely correct. That will also be discussed during the Virginia Highlands Park master planning conversation.
That's right. So for everyone's clarity, 16th and I actually let me make sure I'm getting my 20th and Ives is a park that is outside of the sector plans. It is 18th and Ives is where the land that the county got in the land swap that it would be, I think, part of the discussion. Can I ask, actually, since I think it is relevant to this discussion, before I turn to you, Robert, um, does the county have thought, right, the big difference between the last CIP and this one is that we now have a little bit of sense of timing for the River House delivery and the fact that there are going to be portions delivered in the near term. That is the site plan that the county is going to be considering this next weekend, and then long-term portions. And from what I understand from the PDSP process, the long-term portions are where we're going to see that readjustment of Little Joyce and the expansion of Virginia Highlands Park and the potential changes and relocation of Grace Murray Hopper Park. Given that that has no particular timeline, and Mac and Evan, if you have any comments, it would be interesting to hear from you too. But given there's no timeline for when the additional provisions of the River House neighborhood plan would be done, does the county have thoughts on, and I'd say this as someone who participated well over a decade ago in the Envision Courthouse Square process for a park that is still nowhere near on the horizon, on the kind of sense of doing these park master plans that require development occurring that doesn't have any particular time frame, to kind of help us consider how these kind of processes and value of them occurring when there's not a kind of park anticipated or funding for it in the near term.
Is your question more specific to Virginia Highlands or just in general the timing of when we do these?
Let's say specific to Virginia Highland, but I think timing informed by the timing of how you do these.
Yeah, in this part of the county, it's been it's a little bit nuanced. Our timing for park master planning in general, because we really are contingent upon when the respective sites are going to redevelop. So, for instance, we've changed the sequence with many of our master plans in Crystal City based on which ones we're redeveloping first. So we would try to plan the master. Our goal is to do the master planning so that we have enough time, yet not too much time, between master planning to final design to the beginning of construction, because you don't want an outdated master plan. At the same time, you want it to be, fresh, and you want the stakeholders who are the community members who are currently active to kind of see it through and be part of it. So yeah, with Virginia Highlands, that's very nuanced, because we would, in order to determine when we would start master planning, we wouldn't want to do it now, because there's going to be reconfiguration, land acquisition, and a combining with Grace Murray Hopper Park, and a coordination with DES transportation and how the roadway alignment is. And you get the picture that if we did it now, we may not see construction till 2035 on that. And then you have a 10-year-old master plan for a large community park. I think with Metro Market Square, given the types of amenities we're proposing and how it fits in to the network and the systems down there, that one really, there's not a lot of risk in having that master plan approved a few years before we go to construction, because we think that what we're proposing there will still be salient in a few years. And we just would not start the final design because obviously when we spec out all the furniture and that sort of thing, they may not be available in 4 years. With Virginia Highlands Park, that is a tricky one because it's my understanding, and I would have to fact check myself, but it's my understanding that the part, and I would defer to the development community as well, the part of River House that is going to develop in association with Virginia Highlands Park may not be for a while. And I may be wrong, but that's what I
Yeah,
understand.
no, I'll chime in. Yeah, that's accurate. The only phases that we're bringing forward to 4.1 are Land Bay S, which is the southern portion, and an adjacent portion, Land Bay C, and then building N1, which you noted the open space there. And then in addition, there's a network of open space of green ribbon that connects those initial 4.1s. The Grace Murray Hopper Park sort of relocation and expansion in combination with Virginia Highlands Park, as well as the rerouting of Little Joyce. Those are all in a subsequent phase. Don't have a crystal ball, but I'd say it's safe to say it's 5+ years from here.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's very helpful. Robert.
Thanks, Scott. I just had a quick question. I think when they did 1900, when JV did 1900, they contributed $300,000 towards future Center Park master planning. And is that on top of the 850 that's in the CIP?
I think it accounts for it. Let me see if I can do a quick fact check. If not, I could do a longer fact check. You know what I could do is throughout the rest of the meeting, I believe that it's part. I believe that the number accounts for the 300,000.
Got it.
But if I am wrong, I will put it in the chat. I'm going to fact check myself on that. But just going from memory, I think that the 300 is part of it.
Yeah, thanks.
I think you will have to raise your hand and say it rather than put it in the chat per our.
Oh, got it. Got it. Understood. I'm used to county meetings. Yep.
Alex, and then I want to make sure it's good. This is an important discussion. We can kind of move on to and Robert was getting to there anyway, to the more Crystal City side of things for the parks.
So this is not necessarily related to Virginia Highlands, but it's just overall process-wise of, kind of waiting to do the master plan, especially when something, has quite a lot of interest at the very start of the project and has momentum, and not having those inch stones in place. I think it's very easy, where something, without those kind of long-term planning, something can easily get delayed, very significantly. Especially when, you have quite a lot of money going into creating a thing, creating a project. I think, you lose quite a lot of momentum by, kind of waiting to make the master plan, as well as, maybe creating the master plan without having smaller inch stones in place where, right, oftentimes, not to go into maybe a more agile process where you have smaller deliverables and you meet those deliverables in a kind of a short period of time rather than, kind of just a, kind of a longer term approach. I think having more inch stones is a part of the process, as well as trying to build momentum when quite a lot of effort is being put into the very kind of initiation of the process. I think trying to ride that momentum and having more inch stones along the way from the very start and kind of revising inch stones as you go along, seems like a way to avoid a lot of delays that I think, a couple projects can kind of run into, just judging by the list.
Thank you. I appreciate your insight. Did you want me to chime in on that, or just take your advice, we typically, when we do track our projects, we often have Gantt charts and other charts that include our milestones, and we do love to keep momentum going on a project. And it sounds like you're referring to it's not just not just Virginia Highlands, you're referring to some other projects in the area as well.
Yes, yeah, just
Okay.
I'm familiar with kind of agile contracting processes, and
Okay.
you oftentimes want to have the a lot of instones and quick deliverables along the way in order to reach your product. Versus, it seems like too much is quite a lot of emphasis is put on that master plan.
I think we lost his
Yeah.
transmission there.
I appreciate your comments, Alex. I do want to keep moving, and ask if folks have questions specifically about the Metro Market Square Central Park, the variety of parks that are moving or not moving in Crystal City. All right, go ahead, Rob.
I might have missed it. Shortbridge Park in Potomac Yard, or does that not count as Crystal City?
Thank you for bringing that up, Rob. We were considering that, but it's about a third of a mile south of the boundary of the Crystal City sector plan. And I know it's within the 4 Mile Run restoration plan area, but we did not include it in this presentation, just because it's, we just felt if we included that, we would have to include a lot of other spaces that were also close. The only exception we made was Longbridge, just given the magnitude of, it being like a generational project and the fact that it abuts the plan. But thank you. That is, if you'd like an update, I can always ask Bethany to reach out. Okay.
Stacy.
So maybe I missed it. Sorry, I was having trouble connecting in. Have things been revised, or projections been revised, or plans been revised, given the additional office to residential conversions that we've been seeing? Or is there any plan to do that? Center Park was one thing we talked about here when in relationship to that development approval, but I'm kind of talking more generally. One of the things that I'm from Aurora Highlands, and one of the things that occurred to me, or what I took from the Crystal City sector plan, is that is the connection between Aurora Highlands and Crystal City and its sector plan, and that the Aurora Highlands parks are noted as being within walking distance of Crystal City, and are therefore noted in the Crystal City sector plan as, part of the plan, or as part of the situation, being adjacent. So with more people coming to the parks, more people coming into Crystal City, has there been any changes to the plans? We definitely have in the parks, Virginia Highlands, as you know, and Aurora Highlands, Nellie Custis Park and Eads Park. I mean, they are so heavily used. And just wondering if there's been any population changes, density studies since the Crystal City sector plan was done.
Is that a question for me, like from a parks perspective, or is that?
Is
Okay.
there, what's
So,
density, development,
I can give
impact on
you
park, is there planning?
Yeah, I can give you just a Reader's Digest version of what we do when we master plan a park. So the guiding documents, like the Crystal City sector plan, for example, we reference them very heavily, right? And we look at what the goals are within the Crystal City sector plan. We also understand that it's, what is it, maybe 12 or 13 years old. So even if it were brand new, it's a tool in the toolkit. And we also reference a lot of our comprehensive planning documents, like the Public Spaces Master Plan, the FNRP, et cetera, et cetera. But then we develop a master planning process with the engagement officer and who's been assigned to our project. And through the county's 6-step engagement plan, we develop an appropriate process for each park that we master plan. And we absolutely look at the equity dashboard. We look at the most recent. We reach out to CPHD and get like a demographic analysis. We do a whole background and context and site conditions assessment as part of our master planning, and depending on the scale of the project as well. But we absolutely, and then we look at our level of service analyses as well that are based on access and population density and existing amenities and other things. So what we do is very comprehensive and it's unique for each project, but we absolutely use the most recent data. And we do take into account how some nearby amenities may be overburdened, but then that's the urban planning analyses and the geospatial analyses that we do. But then ultimately, we have a process for a reason. So when we hear from the community that, our analyses might say that X, Y, and Z are absolutely needed here, but the community feels very strongly about some other things. Like, for example, Metro Market Square was meant to be similar to what Crystal City Water Park is now. Now the Crystal City Water Park has really filled that gap. Now Metro Market Square can be something else in the system. So yes, we do pop-up engagement, a lot of site visits, we bring in really good consultants, we stay up to date, we look at the demographics, and we do look at the anticipated demographics as well.
That's really great to hear. Again, when I follow up with you, I know that the folks from our Civic Association will be really interested in sort of the meat and potatoes of all of that when it involves these 3 or 4 parks in Aurora Highlands.
Well, thank you.
I will want to have a clarifying question. Is it sound like to move Metro Market Square forward with construction, does it require entitlement of the Americana project for that, I guess, 3 out of 9 million, it sounds like, or is the 6 million enough to start moving forward if Americana does not kind of move forward with the construction?
Yeah, I think we would need that additional funding. And it sounds like Americana is going to happen. It's just not going to happen immediately. But yeah, Metro Market Square, as has some very interesting engineering challenges with the topography and the underground utilities, the fire lane, any site constraint you could ever imagine in a urban planning course is the Metro Market Square it's gonna be fantastic, but there are a lot of creative and unique things we need to do to make it that way.
I'll also ask then, and I'll say if anyone has any final questions about parks or prioritizations on parks, that before we get to our discussion a little bit later on the CIP, you can raise your hand. But another park that isn't on the sector plan but is often discussed is the so-called Roach's Run. And I'll make the historical point here that Roach's Run is named after some characters maybe that historically we might want to not associate ourselves with. But down the road, right, there's been a lot of interest in access over the railroad tracks. There's a stretch of land to that waterfowl sanctuary, and then land that is, I think, jointly owned maybe by the federal government and by CSX or some combination, and it's complicated. But that often comes up when we talk about additional access to green space in the Crystal City area. And I'm wondering if the county has discussed or what it would look like to explore that opportunity in the future.
Thank you for the question. I do not know of, I don't have an answer, but if you'd like, I can look into it and then coordinate with Jennifer to get you one.
Sure. Yeah, that would be great. And the answer might be that there is none. But I am interested in process-wise what it would look like to start exploring an answer given. And I think that Rob can correct, but I think the bid has been interested in this and others.
So it's essentially getting true access to the waterfront from Crystal City.
and potentially a greenway path, even stretching
Mm.
down to the southern portions of Crystal City, as I think the Crystal City Civic Association has proposed in the past.
That's an excellent question. I mean, it sounds really interesting. I just haven't been involved, so I'll look into it and get back with you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Stacy, for let's say one final two. All right. So Stacy and then Jeff, because Jeff, you haven't said anything.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that, on your point about Roach's Run. Thanks for bringing that up. That was something what Livability looked into, and I know Mike also was particularly interested in it, and I think it's been in our CPCC reports in the past. I have actually walked it. I've actually done it. It is doable to get from Crystal City to that little parking area off of GW Parkway, and then from the GW Parkway over to the 14th Street Bridge, and then back around to Long Bridge. So like it exists now. It's a little bit rough, and I'll tell you, I encountered a big black snake over there, but it's doable. So it seems to me like, maybe it could be a great big thing, but it could also be a small thing where we're talking about a path, a pathway. And I don't know if they did it when they were looking at Long Bridge, but the hardest part of that little loop was right around where Long Bridge is going to come into, passes over the GW Parkway and goes into the facility there. That was a little bit sketchy trying to get around there, but we did it. So it seems like that doesn't have to, that might be something that can be done with some easy, there could be an easy approach to it that leads into a bigger approach. Right now, that little parking area is used as a cell phone parking lot by the Uber drivers. And it would be good to have more control over that place, whether it becomes an official cell phone lot or there's facilities that sort of get you out onto the water, but literally it's a mud pit to get to the water, and like I said, big snakes over there. So thanks, Ben, for that.
Jeff.
I think in your presentation, you said there was planning budget in for Center Park at Crystal City. And with the adaptive reuse proposal, that basically means that those buildings are going to be reused and the planned space for Center Park is not going to be available. What happens to those funds? I noticed that the adaptive reuse for, I think, the Bell Street kind of got pulled from the Planning Commission discussion. I guess they're going to revisit that. And I guess, are there any updates? And if there are none at this time, we certainly would like to keep informed on what happens there.
Thank you. So the funding that we've secured for planning at Central Park is for phase 1. And we have a 45,000 square foot easement that's secured. And so the area that could be affected, although, I can't speak for the private development, but the area that currently has a building on it is a phase 2 area within Central Park. And the master planning the way we understand the proposal is there's no intention to alter the footprint of any building that would go into the 45,000 square feet that we have under easement right now. So phase 1 is certainly plausible, and unless we hear otherwise, we do intend to continue with our plans. We're already doing the project planning, so we'd like to start the master planning this winter.
So if I can follow up, so the current easement, is that where the existing open space is between
That's
the two
correct.
buildings on Bell? So the master planning would be used to re-envision how that space is utilized. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
That's helpful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I will say let's move on to our next presentation. Thank you so much, Scott, for that really helpful presentation and overview.
Thank you, Ben, and everyone. I appreciate it as well.
Thanks,
Okay.
Scott.
Thanks, Jen.
So now I will move it over to Mark Dennis and Kyle Kling from DES.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm just going to pull up my deck here. Let me know if you can see this.
We can.
Thumbs up. Okay, good. I'm going to drive while Kyle walks us through. We're going to do a little bit of an update on a specific project, the CC to DCA project. And then I'll walk through a little more granular detail at the project level on work in design as well as work in construction. A couple of brief comments on private development. Unfortunately, I don't have Joanne here with me, so I'll have to just put a pin in some of her pieces, and then we'll look through some completed projects and have a brief summary of our engagement forecast. So with that, I'm going to hand the mic over to Kyle.
Hey, good evening, everyone. As Mark indicated, I'm Kyle Kling. I'm a capital projects manager with DES Transportation. I'm going to apologize in advance, having some internet issues tonight, so I'm on my phone. I'm going to hop off camera here, but we'll get through these slides here, and I'll hop back on with any questions that may hop up at the end of the conversation tonight. But to hop into things, we'll just give a couple key updates on CC to DCA. So currently, we're working on the concept development phase with a focus on civic and architectural design elements. The county published a project update newsletter in October of 2025, which really highlighted our engagement efforts from January earlier this year and gave a look ahead to our next public engagement efforts, which we're targeting for February of 2026. Over the course of 2025, the main focus of this has been coordination with key project stakeholders, predominantly the underlying property owners for the structure, with a focus on easement agreement needs, design elements, and then coordinating designs for various projects that are ongoing within the project area. So with that being said, we are targeting to be complete with 30% design in the fall of 2026. But we'll have some, as I indicated earlier, some public touch points along the way to help inform that design. Next slide. Yeah, so as most people know, Arlington County is the project lead for CC to DCA. As I indicated on the previous slide, there's several key partners that we've been working with throughout the entirety of the project, including underlying property owners such as the National Park Service, the FAA, or MWA for DCA property, and then as well as the rail corridor, which we have VRE, CSX, VPRA all have easement interest in that area as well, and then our funding partners at Federal Highways, VDOT, and NVTA. Next slide. So as I had indicated previously, this project touches several key adjacent projects, which will really help form that multimodal connection that we're striving for with this project. As most may be aware, there's several projects within the rail corridor that are ongoing, including the Alexandria Fourth Track project being administered by VPRA, and then the Crystal City Station project that VRE will be undertaking here in the next couple of years as well. There's also some projects at the airport that are ongoing that will construct new recirculation ramps within Ronald Reagan National Airport that our project has been coordinating with as well, to ensure our designs are complementary to one another, but also don't conflict with one another as well. Next slide. Perfect. So on this slide here, just a general overview of the alignment. So we start at 2011 Crystal Drive, where we, on the left side of the screen there, where we tie into the future VRE station head house and the rail corridor. We'll span the rail corridor before entering National Park Service land at the GWMP, or George Washington Memorial Parkway. We'll we'll have a curvilinear alignment across the parkway as well. Within the parkway, there will also be a direct link from the structure to the Mount Vernon Trail before we enter the airport property, where we'll have a continuation of that curvilinear alignment that wraps around the north end of the Terminal 2 parking structure there before tying into the Terminal 2 Metro Rail lobby for the eastern terminus of the project. Next slide. So this slide just recaps a little bit of where we've been over the course of the past, I guess, 4.5 years since the county has initiated the project. We kicked things off in July of 2021 with our first larger scale engagement. Over the course of the last 4.5 years, we've had 5 subsequent engagements as well, dealing with things from preliminary concepts to design priorities, which we recently had in January of 2025 as our last engagement. As I indicated earlier, we are targeting to have our next public engagement in February timeframe or early 2026, where we'll have a continuation of our design elements, and we'll ask some more pointed questions related to the civic design of the structure, the architectural design of the structure as well. Next slide. So the next couple slides are just going to recap some of the high-level comments we received from key project stakeholders, predominantly coming out of that winter 2025 engagement, but also over the course of 2025 as we had an opportunity to continue conversations with those. So this slide here talks about the Section 106 signatories. For those not familiar with the Section 106 process, that relates specifically to historic preservation. On this project, the county entered the Section 106 process due to the impacts that the structure will have on the George Washington Memorial Parkway and the Mount Vernon Trail. As we have presented various designs or concept designs for the structure, obviously those stakeholders have, or signatories to the process, have provided comments. Comments we received from the Park Service to date is that they want the structure to be as context sensitive to the parkway as possible, meaning they want something that's light. They consider a lighter color. They want the county to consider a lighter color to the structure to emulate older cement concrete or other structures within the parkway. They do not have a preference for a canopy on the structure, and they want the impact of the structure, predominantly the piers, to be minimal, or to have a minimal visual appearance to those traveling within the GWMP. The Virginia Department of Historic Resources also has provided comments. They recommend a minimal approach to the structure for the Mount Vernon Trail connection in hopes of minimizing historic resource impacts to historic resources and tree losses. They recommend utilizing let's say surface treatments that reduce visual effects on the structure. And then they have requested additional design renderings to help get a better understanding of the visual impacts that may be produced by this structure. Next slide. And so we've also received comments, as you can anticipate, from the various underlying property owners. So in this case, MWA, even though the airport property is owned by FAA, MWA has a significant lease that allows them to make larger scale decisions for infrastructure that crosses their property. So they have been providing comments to the county as well. They have a preference for a structure that has a fully covered or enclosed structure with a roof or a canopy on the top and fencing or some type of protection from the elements on the side. They do support the curvilinear alignment that we're showing on the previous slides, assuming there's no impacts to any other future plans or our underlying properties. They prefer a weathered steel type of design aesthetic, similar to what is being designed as part of the Long Bridge project. And then they are open as well to increased or additional amenities at DCA as part of the project, whether that's additional bike lockers or an expanded pet refuge area at the connection there to the Terminal 2 lobby. And then the entities within the rail corridor, predominantly CSX and VRE, the design over the rail corridor. We will be incorporating a fully enclosed structure, fully covered structure to prevent any type of projectiles from being thrown onto the railroad tracks in that area. That is a specific requirement of CSX. So there's no flexibility on that. Really, we are locked into having a structure that is, fully covered in the rail corridor, given their design requirements. VRE also desires that the design for CC to DCA be complementary to the design of their Crystal City Station improvements, which we're in the process of coordinating further with VRE. So next slide. We've also received some comments from the National Landing Bid. They would like to see a well-lit landscape connection that incorporates a continuous canopy. They would like the design element to be contiguous as it crosses the various property owners, predominantly with a focus on something that is more modern in design and builds civic pride. The design should complement and enhance parkway settings as well, was another comment we received from the bid. And then they want the connection to be highly accessible, predominantly from Crystal Drive and through the VRE entrance. And then comments we have received out of this last engagement in January of last year, or sorry, January of this year, almost last year, is that the general public has a large focus on safety, including lighting. It was close, but the majority of individuals had said that they would like separated bicycle and pedestrian markings or facilities within the cross section of the structure. There was a strong desire for the structure to be covered for protection from the elements or weather. And then additional amenities should be considered as well, such as bike rentals or bike racks, benches for respite, and things of that nature. Next slide. And so as we kind of take a look at those comments holistically and kind of weighed the varying commitments that we're facing and design requirements that we're facing, we came up with 5 distinct design principles that are going to help guide this design as we move it forward out of a conceptual design phase and into more of a detailed design phase. And those are shown on the screen. So first, we want this to be a distinct destination, something that's welcoming and memorable. We want it to have a positive user experience, so something that is comfortable, functional, and safe. As we had indicated, we've made a commitment to the National Park Service to design a structure that is context sensitive, predominantly in the area of the parkway and the near periphery. So something that's light to the touch, but also integrated into the landscape as well. We will also make a commitment to having design clarity, so something that's a unified experience as you kind of traverse those 3 very distinct properties. And then lastly, as we work our way through the design phase, we need to be mindful of our budget and then the constructability of the structure as well. To give an update of where we currently are as we've been having these conversations related to design, we haven't been neglecting actual design work as well. So we've done some geotechnical work out there to take a look at the soils and make sure they're suitable for the type of structure we desire. We received a draft geotechnical report in October. I don't have any glaring deficiencies with that, so we should be in a good spot to move forward with continuing our structural design for the bridge. We've also been taking a closer look at the stormwater management. Some of the underlying property owners have pretty specific design requirements in terms of where stormwater can be discharged or whether it can or cannot be within their property. So we've taken a closer look at that, and those analyses are ongoing. And then, as I mentioned, the predominant focus over the past year has really been on the civic and structural design of the structure. So we've been looking at the architectural design, the civic design. We've been reviewing those comments that we've received from the various stakeholders, and we're continuing to progress our design forward where we can, given that feedback we received. Next slide. And so this kind of gives a look ahead to what we will be engaging on in February at a little bit higher of a level. So on the left-hand side of those screens, those are the elements that we know are already defined, right? The alignment that was shared previously, where our pier locations are going to be, how wide the structure is going to be. It's going to be 20 feet of usable width with about 22 feet of actual width of the structure. Things that are going to be up for consideration as we move through this architectural design phase are going to be things such as, is the structure going to have a canopy on it? What's that canopy going to look like? Is it going to be fully enclosed? Is it going to be a partial canopy? What type of landscaping are we going to have on the structure? Or what type of landscaping are we going to put adjacent to the structure to make it complementary to the structure? What types of materials are going to be used to construct the bridge? What are the piers going to look like? Things of that nature. And then lastly, as we look at those various aspects, things we have to be mindful of, again, pointing back to those design priorities are, how do those impact the user experience and the functionality? How do we ensure consistency across the structure as well and across those various properties? And then we're, again, just mindful of the limited budget that we have for this project, and then making sure that this is something that is actually constructible and constructible without significant impacts to the various property owners. And then 2 more slides. So this just gives a look, again, kind of highlighting the things that I mentioned on the previous slide that we'll be looking at during our next engagement, types of finishes or colors to the structures, canopies, fencing, railing, lighting, things of that nature, and then some more detail related to the superstructure design, such as how are the piers going to be shaped, how bulky or light are they going to be, what type of facade will they have, or what types of materials will those be made out of, things of that nature. And then last slide here, just a recap of where we've been, where we're going. As I mentioned, February 2026 is what we're targeting now for that next series of design engagement. We will have, coming out of that engagement, a goal of turning around a 30% design submittal to our key stakeholders and underlying property owners in the late spring of early summer of 2026, before wrapping up the final 30% design for the structure sometime in late 2026. And so that is the recap for CC to DCA. I believe this is the last slide, Mark. If you want to continue on or take questions
thanks.
now, up to you.
Appreciate that. Ben, did you want to have me go through this deck now, and then we can kind of compile the questions?
Yeah, if we could hold off questions until after.
Great, thank you. I think I will move rather quickly in the interest of time. I know the group has a lot of business to tend to. So I think most of us here are probably familiar with our area map for our project work. We're going to be touching on some of these in fairly rapid fire fashion. So I'll start with the projects that are presently in design. Our 15th Street Complete Street project extends from Joyce to South Hayes. The current phase comprises sidewalk improvements, corner work, crosswalks and bike lanes along 15th between Joyce and Hayes. We're currently at 100% design, and we are working through some easement negotiations, and construction is slated for summer of 2026. The Long Bridge Drive multimodal connection, there's a little bit of discussion on this earlier. This one really helps set the table for VPRA's proposed Long Bridge, the pedestrian bridge, that's in the works in tandem with the proposed rail bridge project. The design target end date is spring 2027, and procurement is slated for winter of 2027. We anticipate a tentative construction start date of spring 28, with a conclusion we're mapping out into fall 2029. The 18th Street South realignment. This is the Clark Bell to Crystal Drive rather. This realigns 18th Street between Route 1 and Crystal Drive. This project comprises new sidewalks, ramps, street lights, street trees. It really helps enhance multimodal connectivity and coordination with the Crystal City Metro Station and the proposed future VRE station. We're working through final design through spring of 2026, and we anticipate construction to start no sooner than the summer of 2026. The Arlington View Connector Project. This project, 30 years in the making, is now reaching final design. We're in final review now for the next steps to prepare for procurement over the winter. And if everything goes well, we're looking to begin construction probably mid to late summer next year at the earliest. Of course, all of this tonight is pending CIP work that we're going through right now. So we'll see, fingers crossed, how things go. But it looks like we're on track for summer of 2026. For county capital projects in construction, I will pivot directly to South East Street. We have two phases to this complete street project. Phase 1 extends south from Army Navy Drive to 12th Street. This extends the bike lane up Southeast Army Navy Drive with new curbs and pedestrian enhancements as well. There's a boardwalk segment that parallels and is integrated with the adjacent Junction Park project. That construction on the boardwalk is currently underway, and that Junction Park project, as we heard earlier, is also nearing completion. The remaining work on this phase includes final asphalt in the roadway section, along with new markings, signage, soil placement for tree plantings as well. And we anticipate all of this reaching substantial completion by early spring next year. Phase 2 of the Southeast Street Complete Street project is nearing completion as well. This project realigns and buffers the existing bike lane north up the northbound side of Southeast from 15th to 12th Street. It relocates existing bus facilities and it completes pedestrian facilities undertaken by the Met Park development on the west side of Eads Street. The completed work so far includes new roadway asphalt, markings, signage, and streetlights, along with new concrete driveways, ramps, curbs, the buffer elements for the bike lane, and a new floating bus island with a new shelter. The remaining work to complete includes a new paver sidewalk zone, and we're slating that work through the winter, and we anticipate substantial completion on this project in the spring of 2026. The Army Navy Drive Complete Street, this one recently reached substantial completion. We had our ribbon cutting in late October. We have a few remaining punch list items, including some streetlight energizing. We're coordinating closely with Dominion on that work. We hope to have final completion and administrative closeout of this project later in the winter. The Army Navy Drive Protected Bike Lane. This project completes what we consider a missing link in the bike lane network along Army Navy Drive. It replaces the existing separated directional bike lanes with an extension of the two-way cycle track west from Joyce Street. This project helps establish safer pedestrian crosswalks as well, with a new series of floating bus islands at Lynn Street, as well as in front of the Horizon House condominium. This also utilizes the Nash intersection for a high visibility transition of this two-way bike cycle track to the north side in order to link with the Arlington View Connector project at Memorial Drive. This project also creates new bike ped crossings and a three-way stop at that Memorial Drive intersection, which allows us to integrate bus, bike, and ped users from all directions. Construction is underway, slated to work west from Joyce up Army Navy Drive, and we anticipate substantial completion by spring of 2027. The 15th Street South Clark Bell Street Realignment Project. This also helps us complete the street grid in Crystal City by connecting a realigned South Clark Street with South Bell Street at 15th. There's also a rebuilding of 14th Street on a tighter, smaller scale to help maintain hotel service access from Crystal Drive and Clark Street. This also helps establish space for the future 15th Street Garden Park that we heard about earlier, and also helps implement new transitway operations along South Clark between 12th and 15th. We anticipate substantial completion on this by late fall of 2026. The transitway extension to Pentagon City, this is segment 2A. This project is in active construction. We're in ongoing coordination with the National Landing bid regarding some site beautification measures. Those are largely in place. We're having a few issues with the wind and working closely with our contractor to keep those in proper shape. All dry and wet utilities on this project are nearing completion. A good portion of the concrete work is almost complete for the center running bus lanes, as well as the floating bus islands. The signals installation work is underway with foundations going in. We anticipate installation of poles and other signals components later in the winter and into early spring. Final asphalt, paving, markings, signage, and all remaining amenities, we are slated to get those in also in the spring of 2026. We anticipate reaching substantial completion at that point in the spring with resumption of transitway operations through this new segment by late summer, which is roughly when we anticipate final closeout on this project as well. The Crystal City Metro East entrance, the progress is steadily moving forward with the bulk of weatherproofing and major concrete work completed in the fall. We are now beginning and underway with major exterior structural work, a lot of steel work anticipated through the winter and well into 2026. There's also major interior work, MEP work, mechanical, electrical, et cetera, anticipated throughout 2026. There are a number of known station closures across a period of about 10 weekends from February to June of 2026, and there will be shuttle services provided to help navigate those closures. WMATA is continuing to conduct ongoing engagement with the public to maintain awareness of this project status and all of the shifts in service that they anticipate. We also anticipate substantial completion on this by spring of 2027. Our performance parking pilot. We've had a number of engagements so far this year, culminating most prominently with our county fair in August and our parking day in October, as well as in-depth presentations to a number of county commissions, the Commission on Aging, the Disability Advisory Commission, and Transportation Commission, extending through the fall, including into December. Also ongoing ACPD coordination related to our data-driven approach for enforcement efforts. And we look for a December board action that we're seeking for updating our ordinance to permit performance-based management of parking in this pilot going forward. And pivoting quickly to private developments, again, I apologize that Joanne couldn't be here. I don't have a lot to add to the 2001 South Clark Street Plaza, except that the West Tower was anticipated completion for fall of 2025. So I understand we're still awaiting that to finish out. And then for the Dominion substation that was mentioned earlier, the county is very aware of the importance and value of resolving this project, the slow pace of work in getting Dominion to complete a lot of this work. The timeline for this was originally fall of 2025. We understand that we haven't reached that yet, and we continue to stress this with Dominion. We will continue to monitor and update everyone as best we can on this. And again, I wish I had better news, but that's the status of it right now. As far as completed projects, we've had quite a few completed projects in the past year. I won't go through all of these, but a couple of key elements here are the segment 1 for Transitway, as well as the Boundary Channel Drive interchange. The Pentagon City Metro Station elevator, second elevator, is also a big one to note there. And on the private side, the Met Park phases 6 through 8. Amazon HQ2, of course, is still outstanding, but the Crystal City Water Park we heard earlier, that's also been a very popular destination now with its completion. In terms of our public engagement, we've had the big push this fall with Arlington's Transportation Future. We're still working on some things regarding that. And with, as we heard from Kyle a minute ago, the CC to DCA project, we're looking for an engagement early in 2026. And we have ongoing construction updates for all of our Crystal City and Pentagon City projects. We use Nextdoor. We use the National Landing Bid as our key stakeholders on this. We have DES social media fully engaged. And we invite everyone to continue to stay informed and to stay connected with all of our engagement opportunities and our newsletters. And with that, I hope I didn't eat into too much official time.
No, thank you very much to you and your team, Mark. I think we'll do maybe separate out questions and comments from, we'll do Crystal City first this time and maybe then Pentagon City. So if you have questions or comments relating to some of these projects in the Crystal City area, you can raise your hand and go on camera. So I see Matt first.
Thanks, Ben. Kyle, what's the significance of the 30% marker on the CCDCA design?
Yeah, so it really sets the high level design elements, right? So like what the structure is going to look like, where the pier locations are going to be, what the width of the structure is going to be, those types of design elements that are really needed to start progressing some of the more significant aspects of a design. For this particular project, the significance is also that it will be the point in time where we kind of break from our existing contract with our designer that's on board now and begin a separate delivery phase for the project, which will include going out to bid or procuring services for a new designer and potentially a new construction firm at that point in time as well.
So that, I think that second part was what I was trying to understand.
Yep.
It seems like, and I haven't tracked every time there's been a calendar shift, but my recollection is that we had originally anticipated to have the 30% design done this calendar year, and maybe even earlier. And I think you highlighted some of the Section 106 partners. I mean, is there what's driving sort of the continued rightward shift in the schedule here?
Yeah, it's just really been coordination that's ongoing with the stakeholders and making sure that we get this right. You know, there's been a little bit of difficulty working with the various underlying property owners, making sure we're meeting, their specific design requirements, and we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves and need to back up. So just making sure, like I said, we're coordinating at a sufficient level has been the main driving force behind a little bit of delay, and making sure we don't get too far ahead of ourselves in terms of making decisions, but also from a public aspect as well. Like we want the public to have the opportunity to review anything that we implement before it goes out and provide that feedback. And getting to those decisions has been a little bit more difficult than I think we anticipated.
Okay. And so when you get to that 30%, can you help me understand what you mentioned, the design partnerships? So what happens at 30%?
Yeah, so we're in the process of determining how we want to deliver this project going forward. Traditionally, for construction projects, you work through in the county what you call a design bid build phase. So you have a dedicated designer design the entire project. The county puts that out to bid, and then individual construction contractors will bid on that, and that generally goes to whatever company has the lowest bid. There's other delivery methods that we are exploring where you can have kind of a package deal where you bring on a new designer and a construction firm at the same time, where they work together and you get that construction firm kind of on board sooner to make sure that we're addressing some of those concerns that may arise in construction. There's a couple different methods we can go with under those approaches. We haven't made a decision on particularly which one of those three, as I mentioned, that we're going to move forward with. But we're hoping to do that within the next couple of months to be teed up to get that rolling once the 30% design is finalized around this time next year.
Okay, thanks. So I'll ask one last question. So do we have a GC who's currently providing pricing input on the design as we're making some of these design decisions?
So we don't have we don't have like a construction contractor, right? There's no general contractor. We do have a dedicated design firm who has a robust list of sub-consultants, including, those that specialize in constructability review and are involved in construction industry. So VHB is our design team leading 30% design. And as I said, they probably have a list of 10 to 15 different sub-consultants who are helping them with various aspects of this, ranging from, geotech to constructability review.
Got it. Thanks. Well, good luck getting to the 30%, and encourage you to move with. I know you're moving deliberately to make sure you're getting all the relevant input, but we're anxious to see it go forward. So good luck.
Thank you.
And just to add and echo a little bit of what Kyle was talking about, the benefits really, as many on this call may already know, the benefits with going with an alternate delivery method hinge directly on being able to advance schedules, being able to minimize costs, and to the extent that we have an on-call consultant through VHB and their team involved in early estimation of costs, even at just a conceptual level, that's invaluable in terms of being able to keep a project of this scope and scale on track in every dimension. We've had similar challenges with a couple of our other bigger, slower moving ships, the Arlington Memorial Trail, the Arlington View Connector, where we began with a very complicated planning process that resulted in a very deliberate choice of design process and then constant review of cost estimation all the way through. And we're optimistic that it's really going to help the CC to DCA project in the same way. So,
Hermer.
Yes, good questions, Matt, because you actually hit on a bunch of mine. But obviously, getting to a budget is critical on this, and I highly recommend bringing in a GC and running that concurrent, as everybody's pointed out. I think this project, given the complications and other things, you don't want to design something you can't afford to build. So I applaud that process. The other question that I wanted to bring up is, I know VRE is significantly ahead on their design. In fact, I think they're ready to, within the near term, start construction. And the one piece that I didn't see in your slides, you really show the bridge and where it connects into the new VRE station. But there's really, I think one of the things we're all concerned about is the connectivity to Crystal Drive and how that actually is going to work and how that's going to get coordinated. And if you're not getting to 30% design drawings until, fall of next year, the ship will have sailed with VRE and you'll kind of be stuck with whatever they've designed. And so I just want to know how you guys are thinking about that, given that they're so much further along with their project.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have monthly coordination calls with VRE where we discuss, predominantly over the back half of this year, that's been the main focus of conversation is what does that connection look like? We've always been transparent and upfront that this project is tying into that head house, right? We don't get to dictate what VRE designs, but we can encourage them to explore options, and it's exactly what we're doing. I know they've been in coordination with JVG Smith extensively about adding some additional infrastructure to that, whether that's a second elevator or additional ways to get up and down to Crystal Drive. But my understanding now is that they'll have a fairly wide staircase that gets you from Crystal Drive up to, the bridge over to the stair tower. We will have a bike rental that allows bicycles, strollers, luggage to be transported up those staircases as well. And then there will be a series of at least one elevator that will take you from that entrance up to, that walkway as well. We're continuing to coordinate with them on that, but yeah, that's the update I have on that front for now.
Stacy.
Yeah. When will you be able to know more about like the experience, like maybe a flyover, going across the bridge? I was particularly thinking about the view north. When you go across 495 bridge, they have that bike lane there. It's an amazing view north. Not sure you're going to have the same view north here, but I'm wondering, is there an opportunity to do anything? We were just talking about Roach's Run, which is just to the north of where where you're showing this coming into the water to the VRE station. Seems like there might be an opportunity here, either with when you're doing the project, to incorporate some of the connectivity to Roach's Run, either visually across the bridge or getting down to it. I'm not sure this is the right way to do it, but at least exploring that part of it, and how going from the bridge, the view from the bridge across Roach's Run, and then to the Capitol. Is there anything there?
Yeah, so one thing we've explored so far is is where can we incorporate additional placemaking elements, right?
Yeah,
One
yeah, I
thing,
was gonna ask that as well. Thank you.
yeah. So one thing we've explored predominantly on the MPS property is there room for some type of plaza, or is there some way to incorporate kind of more of a gathering area? We've presented various options to MPS for something like that to give more prominent view sheds to the monument as well. Unfortunately, they are more concerned with about the impacts that something like that would have from a visual perspective. So what we're moving forward with now is at the junction of CC to DCA, where it ties into that link down to the Mount Vernon Trail. We're looking to expand that area a little bit wider. Hopefully get some benches in there and provide some respite areas, but also hopefully open up that area a little bit to have, some better view sheds, to those areas north, whether that be Roach's Run or whether that be to the monuments, on the other side of the river. But pretty limited on that regard. But we've explored various options.
Yeah, I would think that we would be very interested in that. I don't know if you're here in the meeting earlier, we were talking about connectivity, Roach's Run, just from the pedestrian experience. You can kind of get there going through the tunnel and sort of bushwhacking through. But that would be a huge coup to be able to get that area cleaned up and accessible. I'm not sure it becomes part of this project, but maybe there's maybe it's like noted or thought through, a future connection, because you've got the other bridge that's coming up there at Long Bridge, and you can get from one to the other by a pedestrian. If you had a pedestrian trail, you could get from one to the other pretty easily.
Alex, and then I have a question, then we'll move to Pentagon City.
So the question I had was more, in regard to, how this, 20 years down the line, once it's created, is going to be maintained, because this seems like the type of project that would be pretty difficult to maintain, and have, people, as leaves get on the bridge, or, as time goes on, as snow gets on the bridge, is this being, who's in charge of the maintenance of it? And is it being built with maintenance involved? Trying to minimize those costs, because, as we said, cost of construction, but also like the life of this connection. Is it going to be too expensive to maintain, and will it be able to be open during the winter? How are those considerations being thought about, right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one thing that we've really kind of focused in on over the past month or two is we've really given specific guidance to our design team that while we want this structure to look nice and function and be this, have these nicer design elements, we also want this structure to be something that's easily maintainable, right? So we don't want any type of facades on the side of the structure or under the structure that's going to prohibit access from somebody getting under the structure, right, to inspect the critical members of the structure. We want to use materials that are easily maintained. So for instance, we've had some comments that lighter colors to the structure may be easier to like stain or weather. So we're looking at ways to kind of mitigate that, or materials that aren't going to necessarily break down as easily, right? But from a maintenance perspective, knowing how much money we're going to spend on this bridge, we want to make sure it's something that's easy to maintain and doesn't burden the county from a financial perspective as we move forward after this project's built. And then in terms of who is actually going to maintain it, even though it spans the various properties, the county is going to take maintenance responsibilities for the structure itself, right? We're in the process of working through agreements and easements with various property owners. In those agreements, there may be some type of negotiation of who clears snow or clears trash cans or leaves, or kind of the the lesser of the maintenance responsibilities, but in terms of the actual structure itself, who's inspecting it, who's making sure, you know, critical members are maintained, that's going to fall back onto the county.
And is there any funding from the CIP going to this, or are the sources to the whole overall CCDCA project, or the sources all other sources of funding?
No, there is a county commitment to the project as well. So in the latest CIP, the FY25 CIP, I believe we had about 52 million in that, and about 9 million of that was local funds, and the rest was, you know, federal or state, excuse me, federal or regional funding, either through FHWA, VDOT, or NVTA.
Thanks. All right. Questions, and I am aware we are tight on time, but questions about Pentagon City projects. I have a couple of my own, but I'll let others go first. Matt.
Yeah, I was wondering if we have any. You touched on Dominion a little bit. Is there any clarity from them on what is holding up the completion of the project?
I really wish I could offer you a better update. I just really need to get more information from Joanne, and she unfortunately has been pulling her hair out trying to get more information from Dominion. So I'd love to be able to be the bearer of much better news. I just don't have much more to add. I'd be happy to circle up.
That's fine. Well, we had been pushing them on it like 6 months ago when we thought it was going to impact one of our projects. But at the time, we heard it was a component part that had failed and they couldn't get a replacement. And I don't know if that's still the case, but I'll do my own investigation and report back out as well. Thank you.
I have a question on the 15th Street project. Is it going to address the pedestrian desire to walk up that kind of back entrance to the parking area for West Post?
Let's see. So West Post, when you're talking about 15th, as it curves along and becomes South Joyce.
Yeah. So there is the area to entrance the parking lots. It's kind of that area in between Simon's property.
Right, and then there's that slip lane.
Right there. There's a slip lane there, but there's just a road that goes to the surface parking lots for West Post that pedestrians use just all the time.
Right. Yeah.
The project addresses it.
I'm not certain that it does. I'm going to pass that back to I'm going to kind of run that back through our program and see if we can't have a planning level discussion about what might be feasible there. Part of the challenge is, being a private parcel, we'd be limited in what we could do. Maybe there are ways we can have a discussion, but I don't think it does immediately address it now.
Yeah, I think that property is owned by the 1401 Joyce. I've talked with them and with West Post about it, and this openness to it. There's some logic into addressing a potential sidewalk there, given and considering changing the traffic to being just one direction, because you can only do a right turn anyway, and we want to direct people, I think, more to the light that gets them to Joyce for all turning directions versus, so potentially consider that an entrance only and changing the exit lane into a sidewalk, given how many pedestrians use that, I think would be an important consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great suggestion, especially since part of what we're doing at that Little Joyce intersection is a more comprehensive pedestrian crossing configuration. So yeah, I totally concur with what you're saying. I'll definitely circle back with the group and see where we can take this and if there's any potential for it in the near term.
Alex.
So the question is about the 12th Street project. So I'm trying to find out more information about the rerouting of the buses. Where part of it's creating that dedicated bus lane. And I'm wondering what kind of buses are going to be there. Which is the 43 being rerouted? I saw something regarding are some of the buses where you could directly go from that Whole Foods to Shirlington. what type of, you know, of changes are in the works, as well as will that, you know, is it possible that, you know, because there's isn't, you know, a considerable amount of late night service, maybe that bus lane opens up to regular traffic, you know, after maybe, you know, 8 p.m., you know, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So unfortunately, I don't have a member of the transit team here tonight. What I'd like you to do is, if you wouldn't mind shooting me an email, I'd be happy to route your questions to the transit group, and we can see if we can't get a little more clarity on some of these. You're probably familiar already with the project webpage for the Transitway, and it would give you a sense of the goals and objectives for service, as well as some of the metrics, I think. So I think we could probably get you the answers you need. Just maybe drop me an email.
My second question is about the green ribbon. And there's a number of portions in the sector plan of the green ribbon that are on county right away along properties that will never develop anytime in the kind of current future. And whether there's been discussion about how to achieve those portions of the green ribbon. In particular, I have in mind Hayes Street. And now that we have the changes from the Army Navy Drive intersection going into Washington Boulevard, where you have now 2 lanes being directed onto South Hayes, that then is 3 lanes for 2 blocks, and then in both directions, then back to 2 lanes in each direction after you cross 15th Street. So that presents a pretty interesting opportunity, right, for achieving the green ribbon and reconsideration of how South Hayes is utilized. It's a very heavily pedestrian area with the Pentagon Center on one side and the Fashion Center on the other. This was the green ribbon, of course, being a really important part of the sector plan. Has there been any conversations among staff or the county about either that specifically or just broader achieving portions of the green ribbon that are not going to come along with site development?
So I think I may pivot and see if Scott might be willing to take the ball on this one.
One second. Hello? Well, I can, as it pertains to right of way, I really can't. But the parts of the green ribbon, I mean, obviously when we when we go through an interdepartmental review of a proposed private development, we look for any opportunity we can to provide connections that are in accordance with the green ribbon and align with the green ribbon. I know there is some flexibility, and I think I'm just kind of, I think that our approach is to always make those connections. Regarding the right of way, I definitely can't comment on that, but if there are opportunities through proposed parkland, I know that in some of the projects that were illustrated on the slide deck show green ribbon connections, and we're definitely mindful moving forward. So I can really only speak to where we're developing parks or where we're negotiating with private development. But when it comes to the right of way, I have to defer back to the DES folks.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in terms of how we might find ways to revisit and revision some of the road sections to take advantage of these shifts as you described, Ben. When you have things tapering from more lanes to fewer, but the road section is still there, maybe there's a way to take another look at that pedestrian zone, the bike ped zone. How can we, I'm having a similar discussion right now with that curving portion of Hayes. How do we, relative to what Scott was talking about earlier with River House, how do we find ways to take best and highest advantage of the resource that's there, built and unbuilt, and really find a way to have a comprehensive solution put in. And so I hope I'm not being too vague in your answer, but these are opportunities that we're always looking for, and the way that we can link transportation to park space, link transportation to centers of public activity, private and public. It's all part of implementing the sector plans and area plans, and so we look for these opportunities everywhere.
Rob, and then I'm gonna
Yeah, I'll just add
transition.
to that real quick. The expansion of the green ribbon concept into Crystal City and throughout Potomac Yard has been on our minds for quite a while. It's been in our work plan for the last couple of years. We're actually turning to it this year. The idea, in part, for what you specifically asked for, Ben, is coming up with priority corridors that are outlined already in current county policy, and using our new 501c3, soon to be 501c3 Trust for National Landing Foundation arm as a tool to help with funding. I think that's going to be the biggest obstacle. And so we're going to launch an initiative to try and explore where those priority corridors might be, as well as touch upon some of the other things that have been covered in this conversation tonight, access to Roach's Run, connections to the Potomac Yard linear trail in Alexandria, and really think through how the broader National Landing area and beyond is interconnected with a green ribbon, and not just have that as this concept that exists in Pentagon City. So I know many of you will probably be on our outreach list for conversations about that, including the county and the folks on this call.
Thanks, Rob. All right. So I'd now like to transition us to a conversation, hopefully setting up a letter from the CPCC to the county board and presumably to be utilized by staff about what we'd want to prioritize. Right? We've heard about another number of projects that are pretty much already on their way or happening in the near term. We've heard about projects that are coming, that need additional funding, projects that are longer term, projects that might not even be necessarily on staff's radar. I'm really interested to hear, to hopefully formulate a letter about what projects, and I would really say, we'd want to have in the near medium term, given that the county probably is going to be limited in how much it can do just in general. I'm just taking a stab that this isn't going to be the most expansive CIP in the world, in terms of the county's not exactly rolling in money right now. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I'd like to ideally be able to provide, right, and be, I think, as useful as we can, a couple priorities, maybe in Pentagon City and Crystal City each, from our perspective, if there's alignment on that. I'm interested if folks would be able to speak to that. So, Stacy.
I would start with the letter that we sent last year, the Mike Dowell report, 2024 report, which we never got a response to. There were a lot of things in there that were priorities for CPCC.
All right. Others.
Oh, and also the previous letters, because there's stuff in those letters too.
Rob.
Yeah, I'll echo what Stacy just said. I think that's a great initial resource. Kind of kicking myself for not looking at those before this meeting, actually. Would have been super helpful. But I think I want to just put in a plug for the Virginia Highlands master planning. I've been at the bid since 2007, many of you know, and I have, early on in my time, did a lot of coordination with AHCA. And one of the things I remember from that time was Bruce Cameron advocating for Virginia Highlands Park master planning. That's almost 15, 20 years ago. And I think seems like there was a lot of interest when the money showed up in the 2023 plan. I can't recall whether it was in the plan before that. It's possible, but I think it would be a good idea to really plant that flag, even even if there's some uncertainty around some projects, it strikes me that having a roadmap for what that park is going to be and how it's going to serve the community is really important for all the conversations that are happening around Pentagon City and Crystal City. And without a vision there, it seems like it's really difficult to talk about the whole without that vision in place. And then I'll just put in a plug. The second one that's kind of on my list is Center Park, because there's a lot of stuff that's done around it. There's a lot of stuff that's coming. And there was money available and 2 acres of available space. And I think it's a lost opportunity to get that thing in place before too much time passes.
Tracy, and I'll say, those of you who haven't spoken yet, or not as much, I really encourage, I'd love to hear from as many CPCC members as possible.
Yeah, I was just gonna quickly say, yeah, I definitely agree with Rob, and that goes back to Alex's point earlier about how long it takes to get some of this information going. Waiting till 2032 is a long time. So spending a few bucks now might be worthwhile.
Jeff.
Yeah, I agree with Rob's priorities for Crystal City and Pentagon City. I think the Virginia Highlands planning moving forward sooner in some ways would be good. And that actually would align with your Hayes Street, right? I mean, that would immediately connect into the Hayes effort for the Green Ribbon. And so given that those are areas that are adjoining, they put the county to work maybe looking at that as well.
Do folks have thoughts about including things that are not in the CIP? And I'm especially wondering if we want to encourage the county to explore opportunities such as that Roaches Run connection that wouldn't be happening anytime soon, but if you get it on the longer term CIP, then you kind of start conversations around it.
That's in the 2024 report. Sorry,
so my recollection. I'm sorry. My recollection about Roach's Run is that you're going to have to get a NEPA process started with the park service. And I think the last time there was discussion, they had no idea that there was kind of anything. It's not on their radar at all. And so I'm interested in it. I love the idea of it, but the county really kind of has to get the ball rolling with the National Park Service. And the other thing I remembered was until you sorted out the 4th track effort and the CSX stuff, you really kind of couldn't move forward on that anyway. I agree it should still be in our long-term aspirations, but I don't think it's a short-term thing.
I just want to speak to that really quickly. That's why I brought it up with the guys that are doing the coordination of the CC to DCA, because they're the same people that they have to coordinate with, and so that makes sense to have them taking a look at it. You don't. There's a way to do it where you are on the side, if it's on the side of the GW Parkway and not over the track. Either you're on the track from the new bridge, or you go through the tunnel, and then you can get to the west side of, at least to the west side of the GW Parkway. So yeah, those guys would be the right team. They were already there.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Thanks, Ben. Just from a time check perspective, I just wanted to get a sense for you, for the benefit of everybody, since we're at 9 o'clock, about the further duration of the meeting and how you were planning to proceed. And if you were going to ask for final comments here tonight, or ask for others to, contribute in a short amount of time, just wanting to put that marker.
Yeah, well, I'm not seeing folks raise their hand who has not talked yet. Oh, Susan. So maybe I'll say one last comment from Susan, and then we can move on. And I think our final topic item is kind of important and relevant. So hopefully we can wrap up in the next 10 minutes.
I'll just say I came into this, and pretty much it's already been said. I'd put Virginia Highlands up as important to address sooner rather than later, not push it back as far as it looks like it is in the CIP, in spite of the fact that the phase 2 of River House sort of affects that addition of the acre to the park. And much as I like the idea of Roach's Run, I just don't see it being a really practical thing to pursue. It's fine if people can talk about it. I just see it as really far out in the distance. So that's all.
Next CIP cycle.
All right. So I'm going to transition us from this topic area to actually the relevant, which is how we communicate out. And I mentioned this before. Right now our practice has been for letters that the chair drafts a letter with the vice chair, which is Robert Vaughn, provides the CPCC membership with an opportunity for input, although ultimate decisions will rest with the chair and vice chair because the letter goes out under their name. We don't have any sort of voting process nor a consensus process, although these letters kind of operate a little bit under a consensus model. I sort of, as someone who doesn't like when things are, especially in a formal advisory body like us, are done with a little bit of informality. I think I would prefer us to have at least a written agreement that is our process or some alternative approach, right? I think it is impractical for us to vote. I get based on conversations I've had with some of you all, just given that many of you all are representatives for private bodies or associations, right, that would make voting challenging. And so it might be that the current practice is the best one. It is just a step to formulate that. So I'm wondering if there are any interests or objections with continuing with the formal practice, the current practice, which is CPCC has a discussion, the chair and vice chair write a letter based on the discussion. CPCC members are given a chance to provide suggestions to the letter, and the chair and vice chair finalize it and send it out under their names. I'm interested if this is if folks are open and potentially this would be formalized and discussed and not voted on because we don't vote, but at least consented to at the March or June, or I would say Q1 or Q2 meetings. Stacy.
Hey, so you wrote 2 letters. I like the first one, the structure for the first one a lot better than the second one. I think I put that in an email, then I got busy with Thanksgiving. I didn't have a chance to get back to you. I like the first one better because you more strongly represented sort of the dissenting view. You had sort of the majority thought this, a few people thought this. And I like the fact that, it's because we're a very diverse panel. I thought that represented what we were about a little bit better than trying to come to a consensus, which I think you were doing a little bit. It seemed to me you were doing a little bit more in the second letter that maybe and sometimes doesn't exist. And so, we can have a majority, we can have your opinion, we can have, the business community thinks this, residents think this. I think without getting too long and detailed with a letter like that, to summarize the viewpoints, I think it gives more information for someone else that's ultimately going to make a decision. And that if we're an advisory panel, that's what our role is. So that's my opinion.
Other thoughts in this kind of process that we adopt, and whether it should be adopted at all. Rob.
I'll just say that I think both of you have done an incredible job with very difficult conversations. No two conversations are going to be the same and have the same structure or roadmap or framework. So I think you guys do the best you possibly can. Sometimes it'll make sense to go deeper into what the what might be a little bit different. But we are a body of, I forget how many people are on this thing, 25. And I think there's got to be some way to distill whether an idea is, just one group or one person versus kind of something that, has some broader agreement around. And I think you've done that, at least in the last two letters. So I don't see any real reason to change. I reserve judgment for the next letter, but I think you guys have been doing great. And not always do my comments get fully, I'll just add that not all the time are my suggestions fully incorporated, which is a sign that it's working well.
Susan.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're learning as we go. I actually thought the process worked pretty well the last time, even though I know there were some strong feelings that weren't as fully captured in the final letter as may have been. I think the people who had those feelings found ways to get that across anyway. So I think it's more effective for the board when we don't have too many divergent paths showing up in the message we send to them.
All right. Thank you all. Without objection, I'm going to maybe work with Robert and try and at least put some of this in writing and at least put it in public so that there is at least some page document that basically is the CPCC communications policy or reporting policy. But this is interconnected with the project, next year where we are due to do our semi-annual report that we will start discussing next year. But the adoption and agreement of that report, right, which we don't vote on, is going to have to be through a similar process. All right. So with that, I think our only final agenda item is I have not seen anyone request public comment. Please put it in the chat if you would like to make public comment. Is our schedule for next year. We will continue with the cadence of 2 virtual, 2 in-person meetings, with the next meeting being in person. Jennifer, I don't know if there's anything to speak to at this point, but there are some proposed dates. We are going to look to stick to Mondays. I know there is some conversation where we had to unfortunately reschedule a meeting earlier this year to a different weekday. There's a couple different days of the week. I think our goal is to try and stick to Mondays for our meeting, 1 each quarter. So Jennifer, I don't know if you quickly want to speak to what is on the forecast.
Thanks, Ben. Hopefully everybody can see the screen here where we've got some potential dates shown, and I will be working to confirm these dates as soon as possible. Certainly the first quarter meeting, which is projected not before later in February, but our preferred date at the moment, and speaking with Ben, looking at March 9th. So at least it's not, as we turn the corner into January, but we will be giving you as much advance notice as we can. And some of that's related to needing to confirm some logistics so we can find a location to meet that can suit our needs for a hybrid meeting in the 22202 neighborhood. So I can share these. You can pencil them in your calendars, and we'll hopefully be setting 4 meeting dates in early 2026. Thank you.
Thank you. And for those of you who have institutions that have volunteered or indicated you might be willing to host, I can expect to hear, including you, yes, Rob. All right. So with that, and not seeing any requests for public comment, I will end our meeting. I encourage folks to look out. It'll probably take a few weeks for us to work on a letter, but on a draft letter representing CIP policies and priorities, and then for the date and location for the next meeting, please be in touch during the meantime if there are questions or other things that are relevant to our charge that come up. Thank you very much, everyone, for spending your evening with us.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening. Thanks.